We're at the very, very end of Perek Zayin of the Derech Mitzvah of the Maimer. And at the end of Perek Zayin, there's a segraim, there's a parenthesis that makes 2 points. 2 points. The first point speaks to the Medrash about Hadbeg b'midoisov, and the second point speaks to the Medrash about Eilav Alayla midoisov. And I want to do it backwards. I'm going to read the segraim with you. I'm going to read and touch the segraim inside with you. I'm going to do the second part of the segraim today, and Blineda the first part of the segraim on Sunday. Okay? I guess at this point we've gone over it so many times. I'm not going to say we understand it completely, but I will say whatever we're going to understand, we already understand it. To understand the whole concept of godliness is a lifetime, because it's really more a dead hair than anything else. But whatever we're going to understand about the idea of Eilav Alayla Midesa, we're going to understand, right? And the mashal, of course, is that if you come to a king and you ask him for an adava and he's standing in the oitzer, you're much more likely that he's going to give you an adava than if he's in the middle of giving a shiur in lumdis, because this is where he is. So you're speaking to the king, but you're speaking to the king as a shaykhs to the midas. So please look inside. It's page 234. It's the last 8 lines of the Perek. There's a parenthesis. However. Now again, the first thing I'm reading, I'm teaching, I'm not discussing. I'm leaving Hadbeg b'midesa for Sunday. I want to give it a separate shiur, but I want to talk about the idea. I'm going to use it as an opportunity to talk also about the mitzvah of Dovkabeh. Right here it says Hadbeg b'midesa. In other places in Chazal it says Dovkabeh Hadbeg b'tamidei chachamim. And that's the basis for what says in Tanya Perek Beis about the idea of the connection between a Yid and a Tzaddik. So we're going to read it. I'm going to read it in order, but I'm going to leave it until Sunday. However, the idea of dveikus in the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says in the Chazal, just like He has compassion, you should have a compassion, and so on. Hu and Yenachet, that's a separate thing. Why? Because that's not tefillah. Tefillah is Eilav Alayla Mideisav. Davke Eilav. Mashe'en kein Hadbeg b'mideisav shelo b'chal mitzvahs dveikus. It's a separate mitzvah. It's the mitzvah of dveikus in Elokus, and the Rebbe teaches shehu this is hanhogas ha'odam im abrius. We're mekayim the mitzvah of dveikus by the way we behave towards other people. V'gam mitzvahs Talmud Torah, even the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, which is l'chayra ben adam lamokim, who may einzeh has a similar concept of dveikus. Leizdabik b'chochmos, to become one with the Eibishter's chochma, shabei sheida ein seif v'chulu with ein seif rests. These ideas we're skipping. The 2 lines about dveikus I read, I touched, I'm moving on. V'oid. There's another thing, and this other thing, this is the discussion of today's shiur. Because yesh bepirush Eilav Alayla Mideisav, there's another pshat in Eilav Alayla Mideisav. How did our Perek started with this medrash Eilav Alayla Mideisav? How did we teach? How did we teach the medrash Eilav Alayla Mideisav? How did we teach Eilav Alayla Mideisav? Eilav Alayla Mideisav means you're not davening to Chesed or Gevura Chas v'Shalom. You're davening to the Eibush that is mislabish amitas Chesed. That's how we teached. Correct? But we never got away from this idea that when a Yid davens and he wants Eibush to answer, Mipnei Ma Yisrael Tzeikav Einam Nenim. You daven, you want Hashem to answer you, you have to know the kavan of the Shemitah. Which means you have to know which name is connected to which midah. You're not davening to the midas, you're davening to the Eibishter, but you're asking him to give you an adava when he's in the Oitzer. You're asking him to give it Var Chochma when he's sitting in the Beis HaChachamim. In other words, the Elokus is mislabish in the midas. So now the Rebbe says something different. There's another type to the words Eilav Alayla Mideisav. The Hainu, and this is Limuhusei V'Atzmusei Yisbarach Mamish, the Eibishter himself. And this taka means K'mei Shulamay Lemesach Mideisav, above Midas. In other words, they say, I want you to know Be'emes, there's 2 levels of Eilav Alayla Mideisav. The lower level of Eilav Alayla Mideisav means the way the Eibishter is mislabish Nesfidas, the Midas of Atzilas. The higher level of Eilav Mideisav means taka to him alone. V'hu in your mitzvahs Kriyas Shema. Look at the words. That's the idea of the mitzvah of Kriyas Shema. Shakad Melot Tefillah, which comes the first Benesra. Stop. That's it. Now, even these words, mitzvahs kriya shmasha kadma latfila, is also too much. I just want to talk about this line. Ela v'leila mideisav amhusei v'atzmusei yizbarech mamish k'mishu l'mayla mislapshet b'mideisav. Okay, Rabbi say, I gave you a sheet. There's a sheet online. I don't know if you guys are doing the sheets. You're supposed to do the sheets. Yesterday, I gave a sheet to the Baruch from Achei. They told me they couldn't fill it out because I could only make numbers. I don't know how to work this technology. It says short answer. I write click short answer. Somehow short answer doesn't necessarily mean that you could write words. I don't even know where you're supposed to write them. So anyway, I gave you yesterday a sheet and I gave you today another sheet. In today's sheet, I made questions for the Inyanim. A lot of the Inyanim I spoke yesterday at the end of the sheet. Okay? Explain the classic idea of Bittul Agzeda. Right? Bittul Agzeda is in Lubavitch, it's Aleph base. Right? If you learned in Lubavitch and you went even to Mesivta, you never learned a Maimah, you just learned the Kutasichas, Chelik Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, you came across Bittul Agzeda as many times as the Gematria of the word Gzeda. 220 times. Yeah, based on Bittul Agzeda is. Bittul Agzeda is a Medrash. That the Medrash said was a king who ruled over two lands. One was called the Roimi. Roimi means high. And the other is called Surya. And if Roimi is high, Mistam Surya is low. That's how it's understood. And the king had a rule. He wanted to keep his provinces separate. He wanted to control the citizens. He wanted to remain a powerful king. So one of the ways he did it was he controlled the borders. He said, if you live in Surya, Roimi, if you live in the highland, you don't go down to the Tachtein. Not allowed. There's a border patrol. You're not allowed to cross. If you're below, you can't rise up. No, eventually, the king became more powerful. Now, of course, I'm putting words into the Medrash's mouth because I want to embellish. I can't help but embellish. If the Chadarish and save, call save. And the king felt that his control over the country was much stronger. Wasn't afraid. So he stood up and he says, Bittul Agzeda, I'm taking down the roadblock. Right? We're taking away the quarantine. Those who are high can descend. If you live in Rome, the highland, you can go to Surya. If you live in Surya, you can be Ela Teremi. But the king knew that the people were so used to the Gzeda, they'd be afraid that the king doesn't mean it. Maybe he said the Bittul Agzeda, but if we're going to cross it, he's going to punish us and things of this sort. So what does the king do? He says, Ani Amaschel. He goes to the border where there's the border blockage, the border patrol. And he opens up the border and he walks across. Ani Amaschel, the king is the first one to walk from Roimi, from the highland, from the Elyon, to Surya, to the Tacht, the lowland. And this is an announcement, I'm a Ken Kumen. When he crosses over the border from Roimi, from the highland to the lowland, who does he meet? He meets his number one officer. His name is Moshe. And he says to Moshe, now you go up. I just went down from Elyon to Tachten, from Roimi to Surya. Now you go from Tachten, from Surya to Roimi. Like it says in the Psukim, Vayera Hashem al Sinai, V'Meish Amar Alei. That's the way it's brought in the Chassidus, from the Medrash. Kach, this is a must. What's the Nimshal? The Eibush that created a world. On the Eibush created a world, he made a Gzeira, Elyenim, Tachtenim, the what's high can't go low, what's low can't go high. Then came Matan Torah. When the Eibush gave the Torah, he was quote Mevatel the Gzeira, Bittul Agzeda. And the Eibush came into the world, right? And of course, I hate to say this, we don't paskin like Rabbi Yossi. We don't agree with Rabbi Yossi, who holds Le'elam leYarda Shechina Lamata Masarat Tvachim. We beferish say Yarda Shechina Lamata Masarat Tvachim. The Eibush came into this world, and he told Moshe Rabbeinu to come up to the heavens. This is the Medrash, the Mashal and the Nimshal. Chassidus has an enormous amount of material explaining this Medrash. Our Rebbe probably has more than all the other Rebbeim combined, also explaining this Medrash, and he explains it in a lot of ways, in a lot of depths, tifer, and noch tifer. The Nekuda is, before Matan Torah, you had two choices. You could live a holy life or a non-holy life. Each one was extreme. The tzaddikim before Matan Torah were wow. It says in Sfarim that the neshamas of the tzaddikim before Matan Torah, like Chanech and like Mr. Shelach and like Adam, were higher than the tzaddikim after Matan Torah. You could almost say they were higher than Nashbi. They were in Mamish neshamas mil Mateu. Unbelievably great neshamas. But those who were not tzaddikim were a shoyim like you never saw a shoyim. There's no such a shoyim today. There was extreme world. Those who chose a life of ruchnis were so makushet alakus, they were in a madrega of perpetual mesilas nefesh. Those who chose a worldly approach, so the Torah describes how they lived. They lived like worse than animals. Like the Medrash says about the malachim that fell min hashamayim and so on. Right? The Eibishter broke the decree, so the tzaddikim are not big tzaddikim, and the Rashayim are not such big Rashayim. The holy ones are not so holy, and the unholy ones are not so unholy. There's a little bit more, what's the word? Balance. It's more temperate. It's not so extreme. Okay? This is one of the ways that this is explained. Now, of course, the Rebbe, in his sichas, focuses on Maisa. Right? Leha Medrash Yigel Leha Maisa. So when the Rebbe talks about the Medrash, he explains Poshet, that a Yid could do the mitzvahs of Hashem before Matan Torah only beruchnis. You can do the kavan of the mitzvah, you can't do the Maisa of the mitzvah. For you to do the Maisa mitzvah, Hashem had to be vatal the gzeira. When Hashem was vatal the gzeira, then a piece of matzah is not representative of kedusha; it's itself kedusha. A pair of tefillin are not representative of tefillin; they're a piece of kedusha. And then after minute would be when they become puzzle. Before Matan Torah, tefillin became puzzle. You could use them lotzal apis lechusi. You could throw them in the garbage. After Matan Torah, there's a permanent film kedusha in the tefillin. When you can't use the tefillin, you have to treat them as tashmisha kedusha, as tashmisha mitzvah. You have to bury them properly, and you have to have derech eretz with them. Why? Because the gashmius was permeated with holocaust. And that's why, of course, it says by Avraham Avinu that when he had to make a shvuah, he used the bris milah, the worst hyperchatznius imaginable, because it was the only physical thing that he had, which had the koyach of Matan Torah, because the Eibush gave him a mitzvah to do bris milah. This is how it's explained in Chassidus. There's a Gzeira, and I gave you two versions. One version I gave you was a more psychological version, that before Matan Torah, if you were a tzaddik, you were completely not in this world, and if you were a Rasha, you were in the sewer. But again, the way the Rebbe explains it always is, El Yenim, Leyed, Lachteinim means you can't do mitzvahs maisis, you can just do mitzvahs beruchnis. And after Matan Torah, the Eibush was Bavatel, the Gzeira, and you can do mitzvahs maisis. Now, when you look at this Bapashtas, you get the distinct impression that we're higher than the others. Unazei steht in Medrash. The Medrash says, L'reach shmanecha tevim, shemen turak shmecha. And there's more words to the pasuk which I don't remember. So it says in the mitzvah, Kol ha-mitzvah shala'oves reiches hayu. The mitzvah, obviously the mitzvahs. But it's reiches. It's like the smell of perfume. Anu, shemen turak shmecha. The mitzvahs we do, we have the actual bottle of perfume. Now, without going into the halachas and the pratim of hevel, your hevel, nish hevel, al pi halacha reachim b'mamish. According to Jewish law, reach has no mamashas. If you have a oven that smells like fleshik, and you put milchiks in, you can eat that milchiks because reachim b'mamish. The only reason it's a problem is because there's something called hevel, which is mist. And hevel is yesh mamish. Now, how you separate the reach from hevel? This you're going to have to speak to the biggest Giyonim and Niglan and Nistan and in chemistry, because I don't know how you work that out. But according to Jewish law, a smell has no substance. Mist has substance. The moisture that carries the smell. Now, the fact of life is there's no smell without mist, there's no mist without smell. And this becomes a shaila of how halach interfaces with physical sciences and understanding chomer poshet. But in halacha, reach ein be'mamish, a smell has no substance. Now, the smell came from a bottle of perfume. Huh? The bottle of perfume has mamoshes. You can put your finger in, it'll come wet. But when you spray the perfume into the air, what comes out into the air has no mamoshes. And that's a l'reach shmanecha tovim. The others had a good smell of mitzvahs. Well, the old story about a guy who was very poor. He would go into the bakery and smell the bakery goods. So the baker took him to the Rav that he's having hana without paying. Why? He doesn't buy anything, he couldn't afford it, but he would just smell the cookies. He's charging him for the smell. So the Rav turns to his audience and you have a few coins? He says, sure. He says, take the few coins. He puts them in a bag and he shakes them next to the ear of the baker. And he says, you're getting sound for smell. He smelled your cookies, you can hear the money. It's one of the great jokes that has a teuchen. That's not just a joke. Reich has no mamash. The bottle of perfume says. So the Medrash says the mitzvahs of the oven is like a good smell. The mitzvah that we have is like holding the perfume. It's a mamoshes. You can actually touch it. It's substantive. Because the davar gashmi is permeated with elokus. Now, I was brainwashed on this. Understand, I'm a lubab just like you. This is how I was raised. And then Toshin and Beis, I looked up the Sichitz and look at the Sichitz Chelik Lamed Hey, it's page 56 and 57. And I want you to know that the Rebbe spoke about it. It's in Lekut Sichitz. But the Rebbe spoke about it in this Sichitz came out in Tafshin Nun. The Rebbe spoke about it. It must have been Tafshin Nun. The Rebbe spoke about it when the Likut came out. The Rebbe spoke about it by Fabreng. I looked for it in the Sefer HaSichitz. The reason I'm so late, I spent 20 minutes trying to find it. Mirdachzach, that when this Likut came out, which was Tafshin Nun, by the Fabrengen, the Rebbe spoke the same inyan. And the Rebbe said a word which is not so common in Chassidus. Later I found that the Rebbe brings the Ma'arim HaKemis, there's a word from the middle of the Rebbe like this, which gives another side to the coin. Because according to what we said so far, in quotes, we're better than the others. The others only have perfume, and we have the bottle. We have the substance, the mamoshas. What's the other side of the coin? The other side of the coin is that there's something called Lamailo Migeder Elyon V'Tachten. When there is Elyon and there's Tachten, I'm advising you to look up the Sikh, Chelik Lamed Hey, the end of 56 till 57. When there's Elyon and there's Tachten and there's a Gzeira, so then you can only have a good smell, you can't have the substance. Well, they should bevatel the Gzeira, then you can also have the substance. But there are people who are in a madrega of quote l'mayla meged elyon v'tachten. If you're above the whole thing of geded elyon v'tachten, you never had a gzeid in the first place. And you never had a gzeid in the first place. You never had a problem in the first place. There was no medida v'akbal. You have a connection to the Eibishter. And this is the other side of the coin of this whole sugya of bittul gzeid, the idea of l'mayla meged elyon v'tachten. Now I believe that there's a remes for this. At the end of Kuntas Acharim Beis, Kuntas Acharim Beis is, if you know the Kuntas Acharim, they go on Tanya Perek Mem, which talks about Maise and Kavona. That's what it's about. The first three Kuntas Acharim all go on Tanya Perek Mem. Ashter Misha Molakan, V'tamula B'yadeh with the Hagor. Okay? It says in the beginning of Kuntas Acharim, I in Sefer Shabbein and Perek Mem. The first three Kuntas Acharim go on Tanya Perek Mem. In the end of the second one, the Rebbe brings other Medish. Alter Rebbe, the second one. He says, Adam Rishon didn't need mitzvahs. For the reason, I believe that shtick at L'Kurtas Achin is consistent with this word. That there's an Elyon and there's a Tachten and there's a Gzeira. The Gzeira does not allow you to go from Elyon to Tachten. So B'meli you only have Reach. And the Bitla Gzeira allows you to go from Tachten and then you have Shemin. But people holding in a Madrega of Mesidus Nefesh, like Adam Rishon, like the Oves, there's L'mayla Begad Elyon V'Tachten. And the Rebbe says, if you're holding l'mayla migeder elyon v'tachten, if you're holding l'mayla migeder elyon v'tachten, there was never a gzeid in the first place. Okay? These are two sides to a coin. These two sides to a coin are going to play out in our conversation about tefillah. Eila v'leila midesav. What's the taich Eila v'leila midesav? The first touch of Eilav Alel Midesav, which our Perek is based on, says that if you want the Eibishter to answer your tefillas, you have to be Yedim L'Chavam B'Shem. You have to know which name of the Eibishter is Shayches to which Midah, and you're not Chas V'Shalom davening to the Midas, you're davening to the Eibishter, the Eibishter is Mislabish in the Midas, V'chuli. You're davening to the Eibishter, Mislabish in the Midas, because if you don't know the Kavan, it's not going to answer you. Why? Because you can't ask the king for an adava when he's eating breakfast, or when he's in the shade, right? What happens by a yid who's in a state of Mesidus Nefesh, whose connection to the Eibishter is even bleakful, Bepoyo, Mesidus Nefesh? He's called L'mayla Meged Elyon V'Tachten. There's no limits. He doesn't have these problems, and that's what the Tzemach says in this line. There's a yid who's standing in a madrega of Mesidus Nefesh. His level is higher than Atzilus. A yid who stands in Mesidus Nefesh doesn't have to make preparations. He doesn't have to show up at the right time. He doesn't have to be mechavim b'shem. He touches atzmus hus, no kavanas. He touches atzmus hus. Why? Because if you live on a level of Mesiras Nefesh, you don't need the names of the Eibishter to get a Nadav. You're that man or that person that the Rebbe says that you need Zchus Godel V'Yotzim. If the king is standing in the Yotzir and you ask him for breakfast, he leaves the Yotzir, he goes into the kitchen and he gives you breakfast. If you're holding on the Madrega Mesiras Nefesh, Elav Elele B'Deisav does not require Kavana B'Shem, because you're B'Klal higher than Atzilis. And the Eibishter answers you no matter what you ask without any preparation. This is a whole different idea. Our Maimid is talking about most people and most tefillas. Now you're going to see in Mitzvah Hashem that there's a trick here. There's a drei, there's a chidish, which I'm going to have to probably get to. The way it looks is Sunday, I'm going to be continuing this year, and Monday I'll talk about Vekas, because there's another spin to this whole parish. There are people for whom Eilav or Leila B'Deisav does not require Kavanah B'Shem. Why? Because they're holding at a level of Mesiras Nefesh. So people for whom Eilav or Leila B'Deisav is not holding a level of Mesiras Nefesh, don't Kavanah B'Shem. Finished. What's the dogma for this? The dogma for this is Chana. And again, I'm being mitzayin to look at the sichas. I actually wrote that you should write where the sicha is, because I want you to know these manamakemis. I can't force you to look them up. Okay, but if you look in question 7, I said, where is this in Likutei Sichos? The answer is in Chelik Yutes. Chelik Yutes is the sicha of Vav Tisha, the sicha of Chana and Chelik Yutes. If you need the page number, I can give you the page number. The Chazal say, you're not allowed to say Shmuel Zuna, Shmuel Zu'enina, but this is, I'm sorry to say it, one of my favorite sichas. It's 291. Likutei Sichos, Chelik Yutes, page 291. There's two sichas of the Ram Chana, Chelik Yutes and Chelik Choftes. Choftes is much more nigladik. The sicha of Chelik Yutes is very pneumistic. Okay? So let me tell you the story of Chana, and I'll explain to you what happened, and you'll understand what it means that there's two types of Eilav Elei B'Deisav. Chana doesn't have any children. And Orpa bothers her. Chana and Penina. Penina bothers her. I knew a Yid, Shanel Ma'emes, who was a Levi. His name was Tanchum Levin. Hat mir gesagt, he had a very strong connection to the Rebbe. He was a Korev. He had a very hard life, Nebuch. He had a very hard life, but he's a wonderful Jew. He's a sweet Yid. He was very close to the Frierdiker Rebbe, very close to the Rebbe. He says, I'm a Levi, and I come from Penina. He knew that he comes from Penina. Penina lost most of her children, but one of her children survived. He knows he has a, however he knows he comes from Penina. She says, I once walked into a Fabring in Rosh Hashanah, and the Rebbe was talking about Chana. This must have been in the early years. And the Rebbe was looking around, and the Rebbe saw me. The Rebbe stops, and he smiles. Und Penina is euch gewen a feine Yidene. That's it. Und Penina is euch gewen. The name Penina means a feine Yidene. Penina was also a wonderful Jewess. And then the Rebbe continued talking. Und it's such a sweet story. Und Penina is euch. Where are you going to hear such a story? Huh? Und Penina is euch gewen. I should have heard it from him. Und Penina is euch gewen a feine Yidene. Anyway, Penina tormented Chana. V'tziarato tzoroso gam kas. And the Gemara says that Penina l'shem shamayim niskav, and Penina knew what kind of tzaddikus Chana was. She tormented Chana because she knew that if Chana eldav, maybe she give a kinder. And of course, you have the sugya. Why wasn't Chana soiseres atzmo and her husband should be makana? We learn in the Soita with the Pesach Shavuos, so they bring this kasha. Anyway, Chana davens, and she has a son. And of course, the way the story goes is she doesn't daven us for a son. A nice boy with beautiful cheeks that you can put on a nice bow tie and beautiful shorts and frills for his option to take beautiful pictures of how sweet he is. She wanted Zera Nosh. She wanted a Yid whose Metzias is going to be Teda Baveda, Din in the Mebish. So the Navi says, she comes to the Beis HaMikdash, it was Yamot and Shiloi, and Eli HaKoyen that day was named as the Ken Gadol and the Shefet. She refuses to eat. Elkanah loved her. Elkanah says to her, and she goes into the Beis HaMikdash and hebt on davening. Eli sees this woman, and she's davening b'haftzorah. She's nudging. one of the simonim of her tefillah was that she was davening quietly. Now you have to understand, the halach is we daven quietly, but we learned that from her. Until Chana, that was not the seder. She was machadish. Many things. The Gemara says there's a lot of things we learn how to daven from Chana, and one of them is the idea of davening silently. But until then, you have to daven audibly, loud. So she's whispering. And Elkanah, that Eli HaKohen sees that she's mamish, hysterical. So he goes up to her, Vayachshavel Ishikoida, he thinks she's shikir. And he says to her, Hasiri es yenech me'alayach, go out of the Beis HaMikdash. You're not allowed to be in the Beis HaMikdash shikir. Sober up and you'll talk like a mensch. So she says, Lo yadoini, ich bin nicht shikir. Ishak shasru, I can hear the Rebbe saying these words. Ishak shasru achanoichi. When you hear the Rebbe say Ishak shasru, you don't forget so easy. For eshpeches nafshi lifnei Hashem. I'm a woman with a broken spirit. And I'm doing what's called in halacha ishtapchas hanefesh. And these are her words. Ve'eshpeches nafshi. We learned the expression ishtapchas hanefesh is also from this story. Ich gieße my neshama for Nebish. I'm pouring out myself for the Nebish. So Eli immediately changes tone. And he says to Gizra bracha. And the Lekei Yisrael yitin es shelasech achashalt me'imei. The Nebish should give you what you're asking. Anyway, of course, she gets pregnant. Shmuel is born. She stays home for 2 years. She doesn't go aliyah l'regel with her husband. And when he's more than 2, she brings him to the Beis HaMikdash. And she goes over to Eli. And she says to Eli, remember I was here? Well, I'm back. And this is my little boy. Elana zes palolti. She goes into the Beis HaMikdash. She says one of the most important, Shiras v'tishbachas la'kadosh baruch hu. She says such important words about thanking the Eibishter for hearing her tefillas, and she leaves him there. And Shmuel serves the Eibishter ad olam. Shmuel lived 52 years. 2 years he was with his mother. Ad olam. Olam is a yovel. 50 years he served the Jewish people from the age of 2. And she would come annually and bring him clothes and bring him food and so on. And of course, the Navi tells the story how he became a Navi as a child. Eibishter spoke to him in Nevuah. So the Rebbe in this Sikha, I'm not telling you the context. The Rebbe talks about Brigette Rosh Hashanah. But the Rebbe has a kasha. I don't understand. A man goes up to a woman. He thinks she's drunk. She says, no, I'm not drunk. And he believes her. Okay, you're not drunk. You're bitter. If he thinks she's shikir, why does she become oy shikir? Because she has loyadiri. Why? You ever say a drunk with me? Every drunk says I'm not drunk. Yeah? I'm not drunk. I just had a few drinks. Yeah, it's a standard nusach. So the Rebbe answers, when Eli said to her, "You're shikoira," he never meant shikir from wine. Shikuras v'loy miyoy. Eli never meant that Chana drank wine. Eli meant that Chana was acting hysterically. When a person becomes shikir, they do extreme things. Imagine I went over to you. I went to you, yeah. I said, Moshe, can you give me a pencil? 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 Please, Moshe, give me a pencil. Huh? Moshe, after how many times are you going to get annoyed? Huh? You're going to say, if you ask me for the pencil one more time, you're never going to see a pencil for the rest of your life. Yeah? The Eibishter Mistama can take a little more nudging than us. But when Yidden davened before Chana, they didn't nudge. You needed from the Eibishter. You went into the Beis HaMikdash. You spoke out loud. And you were mechaven b'shem. You knew the kavanas of the shemis. And you asked once. If just like you would want something from Rabbi Blau, you would go over to him and you would try to be very respectful. You try to choose your words carefully so that he should like what you're saying and how you're saying it. You have your request. And you would ask once. And you wouldn't nudge. Because no one likes a nudge. You would not be maftir. Chana's being maftir. So Eli says your prayer is shikir. That's not how you daven. Talk like a mensch. So she says, no. Lo yadoini. Isha kshasru achanoichi ve'eshpechas nafshi lifi avaya. Pirush. When a person comes to the Eibishter with a regular need, they ask it in a regular way. When a person has a need, which goes to their etzem haneshama mamish, then there's a hishtapchas hanefesh. Most tefillas are for things that, since the need is a seichel that can need, the request has to be a seichel that can request. A seichel that can need and a seichel that can request requires the first taichin Eilav Aleilim Mideis of Yedim Lechavim B'Shem. When Chana davens, and the Rebbe is madgish, Chana did not ask the Eibishter for a child. Chana asked the Eibishter to fulfill her shlichus on this world. Chana knew it was a neviah. Chana knew she has to bring into this world a neshama that Shakal Kamesha Khan. Imagine, Shmuel is equal to Mesha and combined. You understand? It was a little bit difficult. Such a neshama to come into this world is not simple. Chana wasn't davening for a kid, like Rochel says, Osav Hashem es cherposi, so that she can blame her troubles on her kid. Chana is asking for a child because this is her neshama. So when something touches your etzim, Hishtapchos HaNefesh is warranted, because the place where this inyan is negeya is an etzem HaNefesh. So there's two things, Rabbi said, that have to come together. And I put them into two separate questions. Yeah, question 3 and question 4. There's two things that have to come together. Number one, there is a concept of tefillah which is not Yedim Chavim B'Shem. It's not. It's the second taich in Eilav Aleilim Mideisav, Yid is davening to the Meibishten, and he's befedish not Mechavim B'Shem. He's talking to Atzmus Hus because he's Yeshla, he's Chuz, Gadol V'Yatz. And when you're Hishtabchus HaNefesh, when a Yid davens from the pin to the Yid, the Eibishter answers that kavanas. But there's a second requirement. You can't ask the Eibishter for a new Cadillac with this kind of kavanah. It's not possible. Because Cadillacs are not important enough. You can only ask the Eibishter for on such a level when the thing you're asking for is negebet. So when a person is davening for something which touches his etzem, he's able to daven from a madrega of etzem, and then there's a different rule of Eilav Aleilim Mideisav. When I'm asking for regular things, even health, when I'm asking in a regular way, the Chazal say Eilav Aleilim Mideisav means Yedim Lechavim B'Shem. I'm davening to the Eibishter, but befedish where the Eibishter is lavish in the midas. Why? Because if you want the Eibishter to answer you, you have to ask him to the proper channel. You're talking to him, not to the channel, but you ask him in the proper channel. But when you have these two things, Aleph, you're asking the Eibishter for something which touches your etzem. Beis, you're asking it in a way of Hishtapchus HaNefesh, then there's no limitations. Eilav Aleilim Mideisav means to Atzmas. And the mashal that I'm giving to explain this to you is that even though there's such a thing as a gezerah, and there's a bit of a gezerah, there is something called L'mayla Megeder Elim V'Tachton. And thus then there's something called L'mayla Megeder Elim V'Tachton, there's something called L'mayla Megeder Yedim Lechavim B'Shem. And that's what the Tzemach Tzedek is saying here. Our perek, our maimer, is talking about Yedim Lechavim B'Shem. And Eilav Aleilim Mideisav means Hislapshus, Davke Hislapshus. I'm davening to the Eibishter, but I'm asking to the Eibishter as a shaykhs to these midas. When a person davens on the Hishtapchus HaNefesh, and again, there's two requirements: is how I'm davening and what I'm davening for. Isha kshas ruach hanech. My neshama is broken. V'ashpeches nafshi lifnei havaya. This is not a tefillah which has anything to do with the mind. It has to do with the etzem hanefesh, and the etzem hanefesh is not a seichel creature. It cries out to the Eibishter. Why? Because it's Negeya Zera Noshim. She wants to fulfill the kavanah of Yidid the Shmas Lamata. I want you to know Chana had more kids. And I'm sure they were wonderful people. But she didn't have another Shmuel. It wasn't like her second child was a Shmuel, a Mechzel, a Shlis, a Leviyah. Shmuel Zera Noshim. Choshe Kamesha Khan. You know, Shmuel was the equivalent to the Baal Shem Tov in times of Bayesish. Mamish, if you study their lives, and by the way, in some Sfarim it says that the Baal Shem Tov and the Shaykh is the Shmuel and Navi because they both lived 52 years. The Baal Shem Tov lived 62 years, so the 10 years that he lived with the Chi HaShilon, he wasn't in this world. 62 minus 10 is 52. It says in Shulchan Baal Shem Tov that the Baal Shem Tov and the Shmuel Hanavi have a shaykhs. Because both of them did the same thing. They went around and they raised the Jewish people up. Shmuel Hanavi was unbelievably great. Chana's shlichus, Chana's neshama came into this world to be the mother of Shmuel Hanavi. And she knew this. And then there's a different set of rules. There's an Eilav Elim Yidesav. L'maylam Didav Agbola. Okay, now question 8 I did not explain. I'm going to continue this shir on Sunday. And Sunday I'm going to give you a drei on top of a drei. Okay? In other words, what I just did now was I explained to you a second pshat in Eilav Elim Yidesav. And on Sunday I'm going to tell you a third in about Eilav Elim Yidesav. Questions or comments?
So the second shot of Eilav Elim Yidesav is only for the tefillah like Chana?
That's right. When you daven for something that deep, from such a place of depth. By the way, I wanted to tell you Avos. You know that the Rebbe brought it. The Rebbe brought this. That it says in the Degel Machne Ephraim, for the Sidl cover, the Teiros of Baal Shem Tov that we have, Baal Shem Tov didn't write down his own Teiros. Baal Shem Tov's Teiros written down by his Talmidim. The two big sources, the vast majority of Teiros that we have from the Baal Shem Tov are either from the Toldos Yankov Yosef or from the Degel Machne Ephraim. Degel Machne was his grandson, his daughter's son. The Degel Machne Ephraim says that the Baal Shem Tov said a Teira on the Pasuk Kivamakli Avartis Ayadin Hazeh, and he touched Kivamakli. He says, Pam Achas. One time, Isaiah the Baal Shem Tov walked across water, walked on top of the water, on the surface of the water. Be'emuna levad b'lishim shem. Baal Shem Tov is called a Baal Shem, a master of names. That means Yed Mechav B'Shem. But I want you to know that there's a Likutei Sichos someplace where the Rebbe says that by the Baal Shem Tov, Baal Shem means Shem Havaya, means Shem Etzem. Not Baal Shem, that normally means, but when you say a person is a Baal Shem, it means that the Shaykhs to the Shemus of Lamaila, of Atzilas. Baal Shem Tov and Baal Shem to Atzmos and Hus are much higher. The Rebbe has the Sicha where it says that Yisrael Baal Shem Tov doesn't mean the Baal Shem of our Maimah, Yedim Mechav B'Shem, it means Shem Etzem. That's a different part. But the Baal Shem Tov once walked across water with Emunah alone, no Shemus. Now, I'm not walking across water not with Emunah and not with Shemus. Why? Because I want to stay alive. But what does it mean he walked across the water by Emunah without Lishim Shem? Baal Shem Tov was a Baal Shem. He was the Ish Elikim, was the Mekubal Eliki. And he had a Shaykhis to the Arizal. Like it says in the Rebbe's Achreinos, the reading of his memoirs, that the Chiddush of the Arizal over the Ramak was Kabbalah Maisis, that they used Kabbalah to perform Eisus Umeivs and Lamab Derech in the world. The Baal Shem, the Arizal was famous for his Kameis and for his Skulis, the Arizal. And the Baal Shem Tov had a Sefer Arafu. You know, Baal Shem Tov practiced. The Baal Shem Tov, a letter from the Baal Shem Tov to his daughter, Odel, that he needs a Sefer Arafu. He had in his house a Sefer Arafu, a book of medicines. And he asks his daughter to send it im hamuchas, with this particular shliach. And he says, Laman Hashem, don't look at it. Just send it, don't open it. Baal Shem Tov had a book in Refuas, like you have in the Gemara, Masechta Pesachim, that there was a Sefer Refuas Mushleima HaMelech, which was buried by Chizkiyahu HaMelech. Baal Shem Tov was a practitioner of Kabbalah Maisis. He was the maximum Yed L'Chav B'Shem. And one time he says, and no kavod, I'm walking across water with Emunah, the Eibush can hold me up. That's the higher touch of Eilav Elim Yidesav. Knowing, being a Makubal, and knowing Shemus, and using Shemus to perform the Yom that Tzaddikim are able to do. This is Yedim L'Chavim B'Shem. You have to know the names of the Sfiris and the Vestach and the Tzirufim and the Gematriyos and all the other Seiders. Then there's Eilav Elim Yidesav to Atzmas and Hus, as if you had klein kind. And it's epitomized by this little story that the Sidla covered, the Degel Machne Ephraim, Baal Shem Tov's Enikel writes, in the name of his Zayda, he knew, the Sidla covered knew the Baal Shem Tov, he learned by him, that Shemaiti Mizikni, that he once crossed over water with Emunah, just Emunah. That's the higher title Yed Mechav B'Shem. Any more questions or comments? I meant to say this in the Shir, I forgot, so I'm happy I mentioned it now. Anybody else want to speak on this subject? Today's night, Mitcham, 11 o'clock. We'll try. Okay, I'll see you then. Okay, good morning. Please answer the questions. Please. Hey, Rabbi, opening the room and making you host every person. Don't make me host. Don't make me host because I have to go. But let the boys go in the room and answer the questions. Please answer the questions. Okay? Okay, good morning to you. I can hear you.
Next week I'll be able to make you host.
I'd like to, but I'm not always able to stay. I have a lot to do. I'm working harder now than I ever worked in yeshiva. Have to prepare a shiur and have to think of my questions. The preparation, the tzimtzum that I have to speak dafka in a certain signal because I have to prepare sheets it's a big tzimtzum for me. It's very hard. Okay. I'll see you 11 o'clock Fabring in Mitzvah Hatefilla perek. I'll see you later. Okay.